Anna, would you like me to just get started, or were you going to do some introductory comments, or you just let me know what you want?
Nope. We're gonna, I got a couple of slides that I need to go over, as well as an introduction. So we'll get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amanda St. Martin. I'm the Hospital Programs Manager here at the Michigan Center for Rural Health, the state's nonprofit Office of Rural Health. A core part of our mission is providing free education to rural healthcare providers. I'm going to be your facilitator today for the Palliative Care Echo, and I would like to welcome you to the session. There's just a few housekeeping items that I need to get over to you. For a more collegial environment, we'll be using our first names only. So please also be conscientious of any confidential or protected health information as this session is recorded. Raise your hand if you desire to speak. Keep your microphone on mute until you are ready to speak. And before you speak, please say your name so we know who is speaking. The presentation will be available within the next couple of days, so you will have this to go back to. Oh, I want to introduce you to Dr. Jason R. Beckrow. He is the Medical Director of Supportive Oncology at Karmanos Cancer Institute and is the Associate Medical Director of Hospice Services at McLaren Greater Lansing. Dr. Beckrow is a board-certified physician in hospice and palliative care medicine, internal medicine, and medical oncology. Dr. Beckrow brings over 2 decades of experience integrating palliative care into oncology and chronic disease management. He also serves as assistant professor at Michigan State University's College of Osteopathic Medicine and is a nationally recognized speaker and educator in palliative care. Dr. Beckrow, I will now turn this over to you. You're on mute, Dr. Beckrow.
Is that it better? All right. All right, we got that out of the way. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Good afternoon, everybody. Looks like our numbers are growing, so I'll stall a little bit here and see if we can get full attendance. Can you guys see my slides now? Is that showing up? Look good? I see a thumbs up there. Okay, great. Take a quick look at the clock, 12:02. I believe we're booked for an hour, and I think the goal here is to do some didactic as well as some case presentation, and I very much would like to make this as much of a dialogue as we possibly can. So while I'm going through, I will let me make this screen a little bigger so I can see you all over here. Feel free to raise your hand or open your mic up, whatever we need to do. But like I said, my name's Jason Beckrow. Very honored to be here today. I've worn a lot of hats throughout my career. I am here today because my dear friend, some of you may know Dr. John Mulder, or knew Dr. John Mulder. Sadly, Dr. Mulder passed away on May 1st, earlier this year. Dr. Mulder was very much my mentor, and I was honored to work with him at the Trillium Institute. So I'm serving in that interim role in his shoes. I do wear some other hats clinically, both with McLaren and the Karmanos Cancer Center. I also have an appointment with Corewell Health here in Southwest Michigan and Michigan State University. I have the fun, I get to see patients throughout the week. I work with other docs during the week, and then I get to teach medical students part of the week too. My email is here. This is very important. Please write that down. Part of what I'd like to do here today is present what it is I do, how I want to help you as primary care physicians in what you do. If at times I make it seem like it's easy or oversimplified, it's not because it necessarily is, but my goal is to help you make it easier than it is today. And please, please, please reach out to me anytime at my email there. We'll get into some objectives here. My slides, there they go. We're just going to kind of breeze through the concepts of defining palliative medicine. We're going to distinguish it and go over the similarities and differences with hospice care. distinguish primary palliative care. This is something I spend a lot of time talking to hospitalists and subspecialists and residents and the concepts of primary palliative care, which is something many of you as primary care physicians do all the time already. Maybe just have not given a name to it. So if we can add some value to the work you're already doing, then that would be another goal of mine. We'll discuss opportunities and challenges related to complex care, life-altering care, and life-limiting diseases. The challenges related to serving patients who are contemplating end-of-life circumstances, and discuss the diverse benefits of palliative medicine for all patients with life-altering disease. I have no disclosures, so we'll go and get started. This is a cartoon I started putting into my slides when I first started practice about 25 years ago. I'm sorry, there's no easy way to tell you this, so I'm going to send you to someone who can. And I pose this almost now as a challenge. Are we going to be the person who hopes we can hand this off, or the person who can lead into this space? Again, I feel like I'm kind of preaching to the choir today. Again, I was told my target audience is largely primary care physicians, especially rural primary care physicians. You're doing this all the time. You're having patients coming in that have some very serious news to go over, and you know you're the most trusted, you're the most reliable, and oftentimes the only resource that they can depend upon. And so this is something that, it's a very important part of our practice. Uh, Over the years, I've seen this wax and wane. I'm actually in a clinic right now where it's assumed that will all be handed off. And I'm trying to teach the fellows in that clinic that's actually part of our job. That's why we went to medical school. So hopefully you'll find this humorous. If you find it challenging, again, email me. Let's have a chat and we'll talk about it. I want you to think about this case as we go through. This is just kind of a made-up case over, years of practice, but probably a patient that you may see as soon as 1:30 this afternoon when you get in the clinic. Mrs. RC, and again, let's assume this is a patient you've cared for over a decade. She's a 67-year-old patient with complex medical history. We've got heart disease, renal disease, on dialysis, cardiovascular disease, has had a myocardial infarction, diabetes, COPD, a lot going on. Presents to your office on exam. She's very withdrawn. She looks anxious, looks depressed. She voices frustrations about fragmented care. You've ever heard about that? I go see all these different doctors. No one talks to each other. She's very uncertain about what the goals are here. She's on the one hand, I know I need to do more dialysis, but man, it takes so much out of me, and getting to there, 3 days a week is tough. And she turns to you, Doc, I'm just not sure what I want to do anymore. And then ask you, what do you think I should do? So maybe let that sort of resonate, percolate as we go through our talk here today. Consider, some questions. Is this patient ready for hospice? Does this mean we should stop everything we're doing and having the hospice talk? Maybe, maybe not. Is this patient ready for palliative care? I hope by the end of the lecture you'll have a better understanding how palliative care is for anyone with life-altering disease. I think we'd agree this patient's got a lot going on at 67, probably not planning a 107th birthday just yet. So a lot going on. They're contemplating their mortality and all that good stuff. And then let's face it, what can a busy doc do in the next 5 minutes, right? You're already 3 patients behind. You've got a busy afternoon. Maybe you're trying to make it to one of your kids' after-school events. It's fall. Maybe we got some men's tennis is going on, girls golf, football, what else? Volleyball, whatever it may be. So what can we do in the next 5 minutes to address this without getting our schedule completely torn to shreds? All right, so what do you think of when you hear the words palliative medicine or palliative care? And again, this is where I wish we could have more of an interaction, but since we can, I'm just going to skip ahead. Do you think solely in terms of end of life, hospice care, pain management, things we do at the end or after the fight is over, or once we've lost the battle? Is it sad and depressing and things like that and negative? Maybe, maybe not. Can it be? Is it possible that when we think of palliative medicine, we can think about how to preserve our patient's autonomy, satisfaction, symptom control, advanced illness navigation, advanced care planning. I should probably add that to my slides. Preparing for what's ahead, making contingency plans. Coming at this from less of a place of fear and more of a place of gratitude. And can it, in fact, be positive? My evolution as a physician, clearly, I'm going to land on the right side over here. I am a medical oncologist by training. I feel very fortunate that I had really good mentors who helped me understand that when the disease is, the treatment is worse than the disease itself, and it's time to hit the pause button on the next round of chemotherapy, and we slide into hospice care. That's when we, as physicians, do our most important work. And so I've done hospice care for my patients who needed it all throughout my career. And it was through that experience that I learned more about the concept of palliative medicine and how that can be a bridge between the two. And I can tell you the number of times, um, and you'll know it when at the end, and hopefully you've had this experience many times, maybe you'll run into a family member after the loved one has passed. Maybe it's in the supermarket or maybe it's, somewhere around town and they'll give you a hug. There's usually tears and that gratitude. Thank you for what you did, right? If we set the goal of helping our patients live forever, we're going to fail at that 100% of the time. If our goals are to help our patients live better, that is something that we can be much more successful. Okay. So what is palliative care? I've got my picture of my bridge here. Us Michiganders know the Mackinac Bridge connecting two peninsulas here. And the two peninsulas here that I want to talk about are the concepts of curative medicine with the intent to cure the disease, and hospice care on the far side or the other side of that. Think of palliative medicine as the bridge in between. It is, and this is from the Centers to Advance Palliative Care, or CAPC. Palliative care is a means of patient and family-centered care, optimizing quality of life, quality over quantity, anticipating, preventing, and treating. Whoop, something happened there. There we go. Anticipating, preventing, and treating suffering. We're going to talk a lot about suffering. It's throughout the continuum of illness, right? So this could be your metastatic cancer patient. It could be your newly diagnosed congestive heart failure patient, someone who's now carrying an oxygen tank where they weren't before. Not necessarily contemplating end of life in hospice at this point, but certainly a life-altering disease, impacting their sense of self, their sense of their roles, if they were the financial breadwinner and now they can't work. So think about all the physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, financial, or social distressors that chronic illness. So palliative medicine is meant to be a bridge between those two worlds, supporting patients with advanced illness wherever they may be on that continuum. Contrast that now from hospice care, which probably many of us are more familiar with. Again, think of hospice as palliation or peer palliation at the end of life, right? Patient with a limited prognosis, generally 6 months or less, who is now declining for whatever reason. Either we're not offering or we're offering and they're declining the next round of curative therapies and want pure, symptom relief at end of life. So my pie here is, think of palliative medicine as the whole pie. Think of hospice care as a piece or a fraction of that pie. Okay? And that keeps skipping ahead. Anyhow, so you've got my bridge over here. Think of hospice care as a small little piece of that pie. And we'll keep on rolling. A few more definitions here. I'm not going to read these verbatim because, and let's make sure that my slides are available to the crowd. So I want you to have access to those. And again, reach out to me. But the World Health Organization, another definition from CAPC, as well as CMS, there's some definitions there. I talk a lot about suffering. Again, during my training, I had the pleasure of doing a rotation. Again, because I kind of came to oncology almost as much through hospice care as anything else. Long story, I'll be happy to tell you that. Buy me a cocktail and we'll discuss it later. But I did a palliative rotation during my oncology fellowship in New York at Sloan Kettering. And the reading list they gave me included this now 43-year-old article, but it's still, I think, very, very relevant. the nature of suffering and the goals of medicine. I really felt, as I was tapping into that 21-ish version of myself that was taking MCATs and wanted to go to medical school and I wanted to help people. Thinking of suffering in all of its component forms, not just pain, physical pain, but the emotional, the spiritual, the existential, all these things. And then when we as physicians, or as I as an oncologist, if I fail to understand the nature of suffering, my treatments can result, though technically adequate, sometimes not only fail to relieve suffering, but become a source of it. Think of the oncologist who shows up in the 11th hour, patients on the vent, all these things going on in the ICU, and I've got two more clinical trials to consider. There are some jokes out there. I can more graphic than that. Won't do it online here because I think we're being recorded, but you know where I'm going with this. There are times when I can offer treatment that is actually not even going to result in a improvement of the patient's quality and quantity of life, but may actually lessen it. We need to know when that is. Primary care physicians are the best people to know that. You go to a subspecialist, we see a fraction of the care. When they come and see you 3 months after their diagnosis of metastatic breast cancer, and you see the 30-pound weight loss and the anorexia and the change in their skin color and the change in their demeanor and all these things, right? You have a longitudinal, high trusting relationship that sometimes a medical subspecialist will not have. So again, in medicine, we can cure sometimes, fantastic. Relieve often, we can comfort always. And palliative medicine is really steeped in how can we provide comfort and support and help relieve suffering. Primary palliative care, you heard that in my objectives. What that is, and the cool thing about this is 25 years ago, we didn't have these definitions. 25 years ago, you kind of had, we're going to do everything treats, or then we're going to quit and flip into hospice with nothing in between. Now there's a whole, population of palliative medicine. We have our academies, we have board certification. If you're lucky enough in your institution to have a fully staffed palliative team, they'll be doing that really high-end complex care. Most of us don't have that. I can tell you where I'm at in McLaren and Lansing, we've got, let's see, at 4 hours. Well, it's not even a zero point 0.1 FTE. That'd be me because I'm there 4 hours twice a month. That's a lot to ask anyone to do to take care of the whole city of Lansing. So if you can relate to that, we can relate together. But primary palliative care is the concept of what can we all do? Primary care physicians, our inpatient hospitalists, non-palliative specialists and subspecialists. I spend a lot of time trying to coach up my oncology colleagues and fellows how we can lean into these spaces. Just some real basics, right? Most importantly, goals of care. If you got a patient with a life-altering illness, especially when that life-altering illness now becomes life-limiting, what's most important? Are our treatments helping them achieve those goals? Maybe, maybe not. But if we don't ask, we're not going to know. If we assume living forever is a goal, I mean, that's a pretty safe goal. But in addition to that, what else is important? Um, Building our communication skills and having greater comfort in managing family meetings. We have a whole session dedicated to that later in the fall. This is where I spend a lot of my time. It is not always easy. It can be very high stress, as you know. There are things we can do to improve our likelihood of success. We'll go over that when we have the fall lecture, I think in October or maybe even November. Basics of symptom management. I don't mean to make it sound like it's easy because it isn't, but it doesn't have to be as complicated as we make it sometimes. And a lot of times it's just having someone you can reach out to. You have my email, reach out to me, let's have a conversation. Advanced care planning right here. This is something, again, you build a long-standing, trusting relationship with the patient. And I know it's not always comfortable to talk about topics like code status, but just getting a definable DPOA. How I introduce that a lot of times is if something happens, we're in a car accident, I get knocked out, I want you to know that my spouse is my DPOA. If we do it in the throes of terminal illness, that can be uncomfortable. But maybe when the patient is well, and they're coming in for an annual checkup, hey, let's just have this on record. We do this at 2 in the afternoon. It saves a poor intern having to do this at 2 a.m., usually on a Friday or Saturday or Sunday morning when they're already tired from being on call. Distress management, diving into the psychosocial, spiritual, existential, etc. This is just having that broken out again. What I try to do when I'm teaching is Dumbo always knew, no, excuse me, Dumbo always had the power to fly, but didn't always know that. So this little mouse here gave him this magic feather. And what I'm aiming to do is be this little mouse guy here and give you that magic feather so that we can celebrate you flying as well. So that's my fun little thing for the day. Let's talk about the benefits of early palliative medicine. And a lot of this came out of oncologic literature. Dr. Tamel Jennifer at Mass General in Boston, gosh, decade and a half ago now, demonstrated that their cohort who had an early intervention with palliative medicine, again, hear that clearly, early palliative, not hospice, right? So these are metastatic lung cancer patients on day zero, seeing a palliative medicine specialist where we're working on things like goals of care, advanced care planning, addressing quality of life, all these things over here, along with, of course, symptom management. What the studies have shown has been repeated numerous times in the literature, improve quality of life and from time to time quantity of life. And this really begs the question of when does our treatment, although reasonable to give, actually start to reduce the patient's longevity. I give chemotherapy. It's not benign treatment. I make so many immunocompromised and they die from sepsis. I need to ask, was giving that last round of chemo value added or not so much? So I just, the questions need to be put out there. But when we do early palliative medicine, if the patients can define their goals and what's most important to them, their ability to accept and, as importantly, decline the treatment options goes up. It is shown to be a time saver for our hospitalists and medical subspecialists. I would love to help you do it in a way that it can be a time saver for you in your busy clinic as well. This is for the CFOs in the room. This is showing how much it costs to treat cancer patients at the end of life. This is the Friday night call. I'm not feeling so hot, doc. What should I do? Hang up and call 911. Here's the ambulance ride, the ER visit, the trip to the ICU, the code blue that the intern is running at 3 in the morning on a Saturday. And this could have all been avoided. Another graph here to say we spend a lot of our gross domestic product on healthcare in this country. We should demand that our quality measures are no different. And again, debatable subject. I try to put that out there. If you're right, left, or center, whenever we spend the most, we should expect the highest quality. A lot of that is being spent on a small part of the population that has complex medical management needs. A lot of the patients that you'll see in your office, again, low performance status, multiple comorbidities, a lot of complex care, a lot of fragmented care. Primary care physicians are our best. I wish I could see you. I see a lot of names on my screen, but I wish I could just, again, personally shake your hand and give you my gratitude. When I was in training, gosh, I'm a PGY 26 now, which sounds a lot older than I care to admit. But it used to be that both family medicine residents and some internal medicine residents would go into primary care. And over the last 10 years, I've only had one internal medicine resident come through my office who said his goal was to go back home, hang up his shingle, and do primary care. So family medicine and primary care, I just can't stress enough how appreciative I am to the work you do and how much I want to help you. So my cat Linus just jumped in my lap. So if you're allergic, don't pet Linus here, but he wanted to say hello. I think we're doing pretty good on time, so I'll just kind of keep going here. When I'm asked to see a patient, now keep in mind, when I'm asked to see a patient that's either in the hospital or in the cancer clinic, these are patients that have very serious disease, um, they're only going to be referring to me metastatic cancer patients, patients with a very short life expectancy. And they're probably having some form of either existential or emotional crisis. And so a lot of what I do is these crises management. What I'd love is can we have these conversations way upstream? And when these crises occur, again, it's not a surprise. We have contingency plans for that. I have some very modest goals when I go in. It's simply, I'm aiming to build a trusting relationship. And how I do that is by getting invited back. When I finish my initial consultation, I'll ask permission. Would it be okay if tomorrow I'll be making rounds over the lunch hour? Would it be okay if I stop in 12:30-ish, maybe, between 12 and 1? Give them the permission. I'm trying to cede power back to the patient. Um, Again, a primary care physician who has a relationship built in years, I am so envious of the time you have. That's the message I give a lot to my students is to take advantage of the time we have to earn. First, let's aim to earn the trust of our patients, and then we go from there. The situation allowed, I try to establish a DPOA. I may or may not get into code status. If the patient is in the ICU on three pressors and is becoming pressing, definitely will aim to go in that direction. If it's a patient who's just finished the third round of chemo, getting the dwindles, but we're not quite there yet, I may just what's the DPOA? Have them say what their goals are so the DPOA can hear that. I call these my four questions. I've stolen them from a colleague named Tim Eyrig, who I cite in one of my next slides. These are four really important questions. Simply, how are you doing? No. How are you really doing? As you build trust, you're going to get an honest answer. Until I get that, doc, I'm fine, right? Patient's bleeding to death, can't breathe, lots going on, doc, I'm fine, right? As time goes on, our patient in our case study is going to really be open with you about how they're doing. Here's a very important question. What is most important to you? A patient who knows their why can definitely once we know our why, the how gets a lot easier. So let's assume patient wants to live as long as possible as a given. In addition to that, what's most important? Oftentimes it's people, it's family members, it's friends, it's events. I've got a wedding coming up in the middle of October. I'd like it to make it to one more Thanksgiving dinner. Things such as that. If we can define what's most important to the patient, if they can define that for themselves, we have now given them more agency and ability to make choices that are right for them. So, how are you doing? What's most important? What is your intuition or your gut or what is your heart telling you? Again, when I'm with a patient and they, doc, I'm really struggling. What's really important is I really just want to see. Again, I personally have a wedding at the end of October, so it's like, man, I'd love to get to that. What's my gut telling me, doc? The clock is ticking, and it seems to be ticking a lot faster, and I'm afraid the alarm's going to go off pretty soon. I'm really scared about that. Oh, and that leads us into: are you scared? Are you anxious? I ask this question, and when the patient says they are, I then say, you know what that means? And they look at me like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? That means you're normal. I'm validating for them what's going on. I'm trying to normalize for them what is a very abnormal circumstance. But once you validate someone's feelings as normal, oh my gosh, it's amazing. The relief they will feel, the gratitude they will give you, and now the places we can go. How do we build trust? I started teaching first year med students. This is my fifth year. And when I would tell them about this, they'd ask me, well, how do you do that? And at first I'm like, well, you just do it, right? I mean, hadn't paid much attention to that. And I realized, well, there's actually some things we can do. I like to keep it simple. ABC is something I can remember. I'm trying to demonstrate my allyship to the patients, right? Think about when you're in a busy clinic, everything you've done, undergrad, med school, residency, your years of experience, everything you've done. I now want we want to leverage that to the benefit of our patient. We want to be their ally. Building rapport. Again, if you have a long-standing, years-long relationship with the patient, you can remember a funny joke from way back when, or an event, or maybe you saw, they were so excited when their grandchild was born 15 years ago, and now they're, in the front page of the sports section of the local paper and stuff like that. So allyship, building rapport, and then whatever we can do to give control back, to cede control back. Think of what chronic illness, life-altering illness takes from our patients. What can we give back to them? Simply asking to be invited back, would it be okay if I come back tomorrow? You know, 99% of the time I get, yeah, doc, that'd be awesome. Occasionally you get, hey, I'd really like for my kids to be here. My son works till 3. Is there any way you could come back? And then, whenever possible, how about instead of seeing you over the lunch hour, I see you the rounds after clinic, whatever works. Here are our questions again from Tim Eyrig, a dear friend and colleague of mine who practices in Oklahoma. When we ask what's most important, that answer may be medical. And a lot of times, especially as the clock really starts ticking, it probably isn't. This is a patient who wanted to go home and plant their garden. I just have always used this as a beautiful metaphor because he wanted to plant his garden in the spring, knowing he probably wouldn't harvest it in the fall. And what's cool is I took this picture in his garden, and he and his wife they realized they were living on borrowed time. They made me a wonderful BLT that day. I got to take a tomato that looked like this home. Um, a lot of great things happened. We stopped giving him chemo in, I think, April. I signed on for hospice. We were having him prepared that he may not make it till Halloween. He made it till Christmas. He had a estranged relationship with a daughter. They made peace. She was holding her dad's hand when he took his last breath. A lot of great things can happen when we ask what's most important and how can we meet the patient where they're at. Um, this is the old way of doing business. We're going to treat or quit, either or. Let's try to smooth that out. When I meet someone with a new diagnosis of cancer, I'm trying to do a lot of addressing their emotional and their suffering. Let's start the chemo, and then this will transition as we go. I talk a lot about contingency planning. I really like this cartoon and this metaphor. If I'm going to drive cross country, I'm probably going to take my car in, get the oil change, check the tires. Do I need new brakes? I'm going to do a lot of things. I'm going to have my map, right? I'm going to have plan A. Let's say I'm trying to get from Southwest Michigan to San Francisco over land. It's the springtime. I probably got a route that goes right through Denver and over the Rocky Mountains, but let's face it, it might be snowing, so maybe I'm going to head south and then go through Texas and go through the Southwest. Because I'm making these contingencies or preparing for what might happen, does that mean I don't plan to get to my destination? No, but it does mean I want to have a plan for the what ifs. So here's our patient with all these potential side effects. If I address them in the what ifs and what do we do, does that mean I'm expecting that these worst case scenarios will arise? Or will they arise more often because of it? No, they're going to arise if they're going to arise. The only difference is, do we have a plan? Especially when things take a turn for the worse, have we distinguished who the DPOA is? Have we talked with them so the patient now knows what so that the DPOA knows what the patient's wishes are? Because if you can just simply do that, you've given your patient's family an incredible gift. Why is that so important to me? My grandfather died in 1996. He had terrible COPD. He was on a ventilator. My grandmother eventually was the one who signed the document, the DNR document. My grandfather then passes away. My grandmother lives for another 6 years. She lived with incredible guilt and remorse that by signing that document, she killed grandpa. My grandmother did not kill grandpa. Joe Camel, my grandpa smoked practically in utero. The cigarettes killed grandpa. Grandma allowed grandpa to die a peaceful death, but they never had that conversation. And so that's why I feel that's so important and want to encourage you to do that. If you can have that conversation with the patient in front of the DPOA, while the patient has autonomy and has capacity and can clearly say, and many will do, doc, do everything you can until, right? Everyone's got a line. Doc, do everything you can, but if I got to be on machines or I'm going to be in a vegetative state, let me go. The DPOA hears that. We put that in the chart. When and if it comes to that, the DPOA knows that they're not doing anything other than what the patient would want them to do. And you've given a great gift. I have a bunch of slides here that I took most of them out. Again, that there is a lot of objective ways we can go about discussing serious news and bad news. We'll get that later in the fall. I'm getting to the end of my slides now, and I think we're doing pretty good on time. My goal was to be done by 12:40. Um, this slide here is just to wrap up. What we're trying to do here is respect the patient's values. We're trying to elicit what are the patient's values, preferences, and express needs. When I meet someone for the first time, I go in with a very limited agenda. A lot of times a colleague will say, "Hey, Dr. J, will you go in and see patient in room 405? We need to change them to a DNR. Will you go in there and change the code status?" So this is where I do my Jedi mind trick. Be happy to see your patients, and I'll absolutely be happy to talk to them about code status, meet them where they're at, and make sure that their goals and what's written in the chart are lining up. All right. I'm not going to go in there with the intention of changing code status. I'm going to go there, learn as much as I can about the patient, what's valuable to them, what's important to them, and make sure that they line up. So again, a fairly limited agenda. We do a lot as far as coordination of care. Very fragmented from time to time. So how can we pull that together? Primary care physicians are the most important quarterback or the hub of patient care, and I want to empower you to leverage that even more. Communication, so important. That's why I give you my email at the beginning. Once we have an email exchange, I'll give you my cell phone. I can learn more when I have someone refer to me in my oncology clinic. I now will not schedule the patient until they've reached out to me because I can learn more in 5 minutes of a conversation with a colleague than trying to look through an EMR where we've cut and pasted for the past 6 months. I love getting to celebrate the work that's already been done by colleagues. That is you. Thank you, and I'd love to celebrate that with my patients. And a lot of this is managing expectations. Of course, the patient wants to live forever, and the patient knows that they won't. So how can we, manage that as best we can? I love the concept of making sure I under-promise and try to over-deliver. And the concept of the Disney way is we don't try to get things back to where they were. We try to make that better. So a lot of times I'm called in the 11th hour after it's all hit the fan. It's things have burnt down. The patient and family are in a very distrustful, acrimonious relationship with physicians, and so I go in and again, if I go in with a limited agenda, aim to demonstrate my allyship, build rapport, can oftentimes start to build a trusting relationship, and by doing so, get things back not necessarily to where they were, but hopefully even better. And I'll never forget, and that's why I have this here. I was talking with a patient. Loved one was diagnosed with metastatic lung cancer over 6 months ago. And I was sent in, again, go change the code status. No, I won't do that, but I'll listen to the patient. Just let them talk. And again, my student reminded me of this fact that when we walked in, they practically had a closed fist and was ready to, if necessary, punch me to protect their father that was in the bed. Just by sitting down, listening to them, validating their feelings, I had tears of gratitude and I finally feel heard. We didn't really change the plan of care all that much. The patient did, he was not expected to survive that hospitalization, did not. But when the time came, he was not coded. And there were hugs of gratitude with tears of a broken heart at the end of that. And I don't think that is not, I don't feel that's irrelevant. I think that's very important as we aim to do what we aim to do. I think this might be my last slide. Lastly, kind of where do we go from here? And yeah, 12:39, perfect. Where we go from here is let's have a conversation. Here are my references. They keep growing, which is fun because 25 years ago, this was a much smaller list. And let's go back and let's talk about our patient here. Or even better, if you have your own patients, I see a lot of names. If you'd like to turn your cameras on, would love to be able to see you and have a conversation. But let's think about this patient here, right? 67 years old, not old, right? But with all these comorbidities, physiologically older, lot going on. Knows they want to, on the one hand, live as long as possible, but man, this has taken a lot out of me. The dialysis has taken a lot out, both physically, maybe the patient's pressure is dropping and stuff like that. Plus, think about when a person gets to a stage of life where just simply getting out of the house to get to a doctor's office is a challenge. And I mean that in a physical sense, right? A social one as well. I mean, when you're treating a patient and you realize they have to decide between putting gas in the car and paying a copay for their meds, So, so she pauses before adding, Doc, I'm just not sure what to do anymore. What do you think I should do? Does anyone want to be brave? And in fact, I think I'm going to stop sharing my slides so we can go to our group here. Any thoughts or comments? All right, I'm going to end. Where's my? Am I still sharing?
Yes, we can still see your screen.
Okay. Um, have mercy on an old guy here with the technology. What for how I can stop sharing.
Might have to go. Let me see if I can stop you from sharing. I don't think I can though.
Yeah. I bet I've hidden it somewhere. Okay.
Hey, I got you.
Okay. All right. I see a few folks. I see Tressa and I see Jeremy. You guys want to take a crack at it, or does this resonate? Anyone out there? Go ahead,
Go
Jeremy.
ahead, Julie.
Thanks. I think it's a great present. I mean, many patients present here. I'm in Kalkaska, rural community. Lots of patients present looking just like that. I'm always interested in the conversation before dialysis, like like I get it. Like you want to use dialysis, but dialysis is such a. I mean, you have to schedule it. It's multiple times a week. You spend a full day recovering and
Mhm.
so, and that patient isn't necessarily, I mean, just looking at the other comorbidities, it's not like they're going to be the first one in line for a kidney transplant. So it
Mhm.
feels like that, the conversation about palliative care, what you want, should have happened prior to that event potentially.
Yep.
And so once you've started that conversation, my question is how do you rein like one, the conversation should have been had sooner. And if you've already decided, like, hey, I want to have everything you can possibly have done to me, how do you kind of re-interject that and be like, well, not like I told you so, but like
Mhm.
it's kind of like this space where there's like some humility because of the what you thought was going to happen and then what really kind of happened. So
Yeah. Excellent. 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 Yes. Jeremy, can I ask, are you a primary care doc in Kalkaska?
no, I'm a nurse. I'm working with the Center for Rural Health to bring palliative care services to Kalkaska.
Okay.
So no, just a guy who spends a lot of time around doctors. So
Well, again, my wife is a nurse, and my mother was a medical assistant, and so I grew up. So thank you for what you do. And yes, maybe I should have brought this out then. Yes, and let's empower and give agency to not just our nurses, but anyone, in a hospital who can see, right? If I go in as a medical oncologist, a lot of times I go in with blinders on and very microscopic. How do we make that more macroscopic? So, um, the ideal is in a primary care office, like we've got a long-standing relationship, hopefully built in years. And again, um, when people are well, seems like kind of a buzzkill to start talking about the what ifs, right? But that's where I really think there's an opportunity there to just simply establish that DPOA conversation, or if a health let's say you're taking care of multiple generations, right? So now we'll say um, we've got the patient's son or daughter, and then the grandchildren. We got three generations of folks, right? So the daughter brings in grandpa who now has advanced disease. That's a good time to talk to the daughter about what maybe their goals are. So trying to find ways to set that up. A lot of times, what happens is patients are in their home, something's going on. They call 911, they get sent to the hospital, and everything happens, right? And that's usually fantastic, right? We have someone who is trending towards breathing now and not breathing tomorrow that we can bring back into the center. But their kidneys fail in the middle of that, and now we've got them set up. So a lot of times in the hospital, do patients really have agency to say no, thank you? Not really. So a lot of times, yes, they'll be coming back to the clinic with all these things going on. And that's where I think it's really important as a primary care physician, as any um, health professional who has a long-standing relationship, to start to look at, again, those four questions, especially what's most important. Because if you give space and you create agency for someone to say what's most important to them, like you just said, I go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I sleep Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. If I'm lucky, I can make it to church on Sunday, but I haven't been to church in 4 weeks. Well, what's most important? I just wish I had enough energy to enjoy Sunday dinner with my family. Okay, now we can have that conversation. Is the dialysis helping you achieve that? Sometimes, Doc, it feels like I should and shouldn't. I don't know. You'll find a lot of times early on, it's let's do everything. But it's kind of like getting on a roller coaster. As a kid, I grew up in mid-Michigan, and for a fun day, we'd go to Cedar Point. I remember getting on the Gemini, and once you heard that, the little brake opened up, and once you started to roll, you realize, man, I can't get off now. Healthcare can be a lot like that. So, how can we ask our patients what are most important and give them the power? I don't like the word quit, so I use the word pause button, right? No one wants to quit, neither do I. But every now and again in life, it's best to hit that pause button. Let's see, so in the chemo suite, sometimes we hit the pause button, the side effects wear off, the patient gets stronger. Now let's go from there. Sometimes we hit play again. So, Jeremy, thank you for asking that question.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, what we see is the same kind of concept. We have a long-term care as well, and what happens is approaching the ED, and it's a crisis. And the worst time to be making decisions is in a crisis, and then
Yep,
we're all scrambling and everything else. So I just appreciate your case study and your willingness to kind of talk through it.
my pleasure. Yeah, because a lot of times I'm called in after the fires burn through, and you can hear my crusade. The best fire is the one we never fight. Think of me as Smokey Bear. That's my goal. All right. I see Kelly now on the camera. Or anyone else have a question? Again, I really appreciate having this opportunity. Would love to talk, more directly or one-on-one. Because again, I probably make this sound like it's easy, folks. It's taken me 25 years to, and a lot of trial and a lot more error, right? We learn from our mistakes too. Okay, why don't we do this? We'll call it at 12:48, but I'm going to stick on if anyone wants to do a one-on-one type question after. There are two things in the chat. Is that anything for me? That looks like technical stuff. So why don't we call it a day? And if anyone's left, I'll stick around. Take care,
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah, I just have a little cleanup to do. Just this is your post-session evaluation. To earn your CME credits for completion of each of these steps, it's required to earn your CME. So you're going to need to follow the QR code here. If the QR code doesn't work for you right at this minute, we'll be sending you a follow-up email that will contain the survey link as well as the QR code. But you'll need to complete this before you can get your education certificate. So the evaluation and claiming credit process takes close to 30 days after the activity, and you will not be able to claim the credit after that date. So be looking forward to an email coming from myself or Renee Calkins in our office. Any questions for Renee? I have her email listed, and the activity code here for you to reference is 95211. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
A few folks still on. Anyone have a question? Maybe they're in the bathroom.
Yeah, I actually have a question. When you
Kelly,
kind of said one of
go.
your four questions, are you scared? And they say yes, and you
Yeah.
validate that as normal. What do you say when they say no, I'm not scared?
Well, I guess the question is that um, for psychological, are they is something psychologically off, or oftentimes that's a an answer that it's usually based in their spirituality.
Okay.
Uh, God, when I have a patient and they look at me and they know, yeah, I know my time is limited, and I say, gosh, are you anxious? I said, Doc, I'm at peace with my spirituality. I'm at peace with my creator. I mean, how many times have I been brought to tears? My spouse of 50 plus years is up there waiting for me, whatever it may be. I try to be very um, when it comes to spirituality, that's a huge part of a lot of people's healing, right? So I want to embrace that as best I can. But again, and as a you heard me using reality, not religion, right? My job is not to convert anyone. So, but usually when someone that we think should be anxious is not, it's usually a sign of their strength and their spirituality. If I have a medical student and I ask them if they're anxious, the answer better be yes, because if I meet a cocky enough medical student that they're not afraid of anything, there's a psychological concern there that we need to address, and we better do it sooner rather than later.
Excellent. Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay. Well, why don't we call it then? I think the last few here just signing out. So,
Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Becker, for your time today. So greatly appreciate it. Great session. And I look forward to the November one or October, not November, October, right? Is that October?
October 14th, maybe?
Yeah. Yep. I think so. So look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you, everybody.